In over 14 years of heisting, we've pulled off some crazy hits. But in honor of Payday 3 finally receiving loot value notifications, I want to know what's the most valuable thing the gang has ever nicked on a heist. I say thing, not object or loot, because the Payday gang has a much more versatile heist portfolio than your run-of-the-mill band of thieves. They deal with a lot of crazy heist targets, especially towards the end of the core campaign of Payday 2, ranging from ancient Mesopotamian artifacts to a literal bloke. And whilst we don't necessarily heist it, we do learn the secret to reincarnation in the process. So to rationalise that in the context of real world value, we're going to have to read between the lines of those dollars flashing up on screen. To be clear, I'm not looking for the heist where we steal the most value. That would likely be as straightforward as picking one of the many loot bag heavy missions like Golden Grin Casino or First World Bank. No, I want to know what we've taken that individually holds the highest financial and worldly value. In the process, we're also going to have to deal with the hyper-deflation that apparently took place between Payday 2 and 3, as loot values have been cut down to size across the board to better represent their true value to the player, especially the disappearance of the offshore fund and death sentence's 9.2 times value multiplier. Not to mention, Payday 3 alters the value of certain loot objectives depending on whether they're stolen in stealth or loud, which makes absolutely no sense from a valuation perspective. That's why I'll be accounting for every contextual clue I come across, be that the value of similar loot across the franchise, heist descriptions, and real-world equivalents when all else fails. This is the Payday Gang's greatest hits. Okay, where's a good place to start? Probably Payday 2 and its massive plethora of potential heist targets. I mean, straight off the bat, we can steal a whopping $390,000 from an ATM barely a second after loading into a standard bank heist or big oil. We can take that one step further with loose loot and actually take a total of $422,500 for a winning slot machine ticket on either Golden Grin or Black Cat. For a bit of perspective, that's only slightly less than what you'll get for stealing the crypto wallet in Stealth in Payday 3, a meager $425,000 by Payday Gang standards. Moving on to loot that can actually significantly outperform Golden Grin gambling, A-grade Wixia prototypes from 99 boxes when stolen stealth cross just about that $500,000 mark, quite the expensive load if you ask me, tying with Payday the Heist Giant Garnet from the Diamond Heist, but nowhere near enough to compete with the quite inexplicably expensive SSD from Mason Laurent's office during Touch the Sky, coming in at a massive $595,000 during Overkill Stealth. Payday 3's most valuable baggable item, just about pipping sins to that crown, Payday 3's only truly unique form of hidden loot in the game. It sells for a respectable $545,000, despite functioning as a state-of-the-art crime-fighting AI that would surely be driven up in value by the gang's current spree. By the way, join Shade failing to reverse engineer sins into a crime-enabling AI companion, voiced by Simon Merchant, remains one of the greatest missed opportunities this narrative has ever seen, in my opinion. If anyone from Starbreeze is watching, you can have that one for free. Moving on from the chump change category, it's time to leap to loot that can breach the gold standard, the 1 million mark, starting in a strange place. Overdrill in Payday the Heist is worth a total of $70 million. A crazy overall figure even in the context of Payday 2's inflated numbers. However, that's for a hell of a lot of Mayan gold. 70 bricks to be exact, coming in at just 1 million each. Not bad, but probably better saved to power that reincarnation engine, all things considered. Fun fact, it's also the same price as a nuclear warhead, at least according to our boy Vlad, who is surely ripping the crew off with that one. Next up, we have the surprisingly high value samurai armor from Shadow Raid. For how much of a faff this is to access solo, it probably should be worth some decent dosh, although it does slightly throw off my calculation system. This stuff comes to a max of $1.15 million per piece, but the entire suit of armor racks up an impressive $4.6 million in total. Should this be considered as 1 or 4 items stolen? I have no idea, but fortunately it's not even close to going for the title of most expensive, so I'm not worried about settling an argument for 14th or 15th place. There's actually a bunch of loot items that come in at a mighty 2.3 million value, including Almir's ever heavy and expensive toast, although I don't fancy getting to the economics of this bad boy. The turret parts from the train heist, the bomb parts from the bomb heist, and even the red diamond from Payday 2's Diamond Heist remake, again showcasing the power of inflation in the world of Payday. The TF2NG Sentry from Train Heist also comes in 3 parts, meaning if we want to be liberal with the Shadow Raid armor logic, it could be seen as a 6.9 million loot item, but even then, it couldn't compete with the 9.2 million that the Butcher's Bomb is worth when we add up all 4 of its parts. Just don't ask why this is more than 9 times the value of Vlad's nukes. Finally, in the $2.3 million category, we have both the Dentist coffers, specifically those stolen later on in Henry's Rock and Breaking Feds, containing key components to assemble a device used by the gang to prove their worth and gain access to Baldwin's Lament below the White House, as well as the Obsidian Tablet, the device that revealed all the riddles on that quest. It's hard to put a numerical value on these keys to the secret, but in a shocking turn of events, I can confirm they're worth less than a toothbrush. Not just any toothbrush, mind you. Panic Room's giant toothbrush coming in at a perplexing $4.14 million. Much like Elmir's toast, I don't know how much stock should be placed in this thing's value, but I suppose you can't put a price on decent dental care. And honestly, I just need the segue to get away from those bloody relics we steal. Somehow, even more valuable than an oversized toothbrush, hard to believe I know, we have the BCI helmet from Day 2 of Biker Heist, and a fully loaded Master Server from Boiling Point after 4 Super Soldier scans, coming in at a mighty $4.6 million. These are both one-of-a-kind scientific research loot items, hence their unbelievably high individual values, although I'm not entirely sure we can celebrate the Boiling Point server too thoroughly, bearing in mind this one is contracted by Jimmy, meaning he's essentially paying himself for services rendered. I have another contentious loot item for you, in the form of the entire Panic Room we airlift out of the eponymous heist. In theory, we never break anything open into separate components here, meaning the just under $5 million we receive for overkill completion in Payday the Heist, or a whopping $8.2 million in Payday 2, could be counted as a single stolen object. Looking inside though, it's fairly obvious it's a bunch of cash bundles, so I'm not sure we can reasonably give it the special treatment. Instead, look no further than the Dentist Diamond Heist for the single highest value loot bag we ever steal. The legendary diamond, which does admittedly play a minor, if not crucial role in solving one of the Sanctum riddles during the secret, is worth a total of $6.9 million. They really bigged this thing up during its trailer, but damn, this is one expensive piece of jewelry, worth more than an entire heist on its own. Hell, I'm pretty sure you could roll up everything we steal in the initial 8 campaign heists for Payday 3, and it still wouldn't add up to 6.9 mil. However, even it can't compete with the top 3 earning heists which involve stealing something that's either intangible or not specifically listed in the game as a baggable loot item. But first, I need to run you through a few honorable mentions that you simply can't put a price tag on. On Houston Breakout, our prize loot is Houston himself, a triumphant return for the gang's most professional and least charismatic heister, a potent combination when used correctly. Obviously, I jest, but I'd also argue that Hoxton's Breakout offered the gang more tangible value a few years prior, bearing in mind he orchestrated a revenge hit within 1 year of freedom, outing the rat Hector, who'd been disrupting their operation since 2013. And by that logic, freeing Bane in Hell's Island might have been an even bigger deal to the crew, bearing in mind not only do they gain a temporary super soldier as an ally, through him they also end up Trojan horsing their way into the most powerful political seat on Earth, the US Premiership, assuming you consider the secret ending to be canon. Speaking of political value, we probably shouldn't underestimate the likes of Election Day. Whilst the commission on this one is just in excess of $1 million, ignoring the bonus goal for doing it without raising alarms, surely having a puppet politician as mayor of Washington is like gold dust to criminals. Obviously, this doesn't really work out, and McKendrick, somehow the canonical president by the time Payday 3 runs around, is nothing more than a thorn in their side after they help raise him to power. But in theory, it could have been worth a hell of a lot more than $6.9 million to the crew. It's a similar case with Brooklyn 1010. This one actually pays out more than $8 million and results in some pretty valuable favour with the criminal organisation The Continental after rescuing their concierge, Sharon. Not sure you can put a price on being mates with assassins. Finally, I'd be remiss not to mention the actual secret. Without the likes of No Mercy or Brooklyn Bank, Bane would have likely never discovered his obsession with Cagliostro and the Alchemist, whilst the crew would have never gained access to the coffers without stealing the Medallion of Perseids. As we know, the endgame at the White House resulted in the world's most roundabout presidential coup, body snatcher style, which should have given the gang immunity for life. Lord knows if that's retconned in Payday 3, Concord had the gall to send assassins after them, and President Bain is nowhere to be found, but the theoretical value of an inside man at the top of the White House has got to be in the trillions of dollars, never mind billions. However, as I know this sort of wishy-washy answer is the most unsatisfying conclusion ever, let's just get on to the top 3 cold hard cash jackpots, starting with Fear and Greed from Payday 3. On this heist, we can exchange up to $10 million in counter trades against Concord stocks, shorting them to oblivion, whilst directly manipulating the market from the Wall Street mainframe. Admittedly, the cut you individually receive is only 1.2 million of that total figure, but the heist is fairly straightforward in how it showcases the extent of the financial crime. So despite Shade ripping us off with our individual cuts, it's still comfortably good enough to get this Payday 3 heist on the leaderboard, the only one from the 3rd game landing in 3rd place. One step up from it, we have Big Oil from Payday 2, more specifically the fusion reactor prototype from Day 2. Whilst we never see the specific value of the correct engine upon chucking it into the chopper because it needs to be lab tested, the total heist value for completing this one is $17.5 million, and as the only loot source available in Dr. Rossi's lab, this massive sum can only be attributed to whatever the elephant is paying for this engine. And let's be honest, the oil conglomerates would likely be paying way in excess of 17.5 mil to keep this source of clean energy out of the public's hands. So this was probably also a bit of a lowball contract. Not only is this one of the most heinous crimes against humanity the Payday gang ever accomplished, it's unsurprisingly also one of the most profitable. The dirtier the money and all that. But neither can compete, at least on paper, with Undercover. This heist, which features in both Payday 2 and the heist, involves us canonically going after a server containing $25 million in pre-stolen IRS funds. Make no bones about it, this one's value is etched directly into the game's lore, not based on some convoluted speculation about the reward. Now, I will concede, within Payday 2 the max contract payout is $9.45 million, which might raise a few eyebrows as it isn't equal to a quarter or fifth of the take. Hell, even if we try and divide it between people like Alex, who were involved in this heist, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But remember, these heists need to be balanced around each other, not necessarily accurate to the narrative. That being said, when inflation adjusted from all the way back in 2013 in Payday the Heist, it hits an even more impressive $35,277,054 with 28 cents in change. That's big value in today's money, comfortably the most the crew has ever received from an individual steal, and topping this list at a canter. And that's a list of most expensive items ever pilfered by the Payday gang. I haven't even gone into all of those intangible jobs, like when we rescued the giant from police custody on the Green Bridge, or what I assume to be priceless fictional pardons taken directly from the epicenter of the White House. It's a goofy franchise spanning over a decade and multiple games with their own separate economies. I mean, meth has gone from costing a massive 3 mil per bag in Payday 2 to just over 116k in the sequel. Clearly that Breaking Bad hype at the time was seriously distorting the market. In all seriousness, with this in mind, any video like this one should be taken at face value as a bit of nostalgic fun, which I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, let me know in the comments. Do me a massive favour by checking out my range of Apex Gaming PCs from the link at the top of the description. Take care, happy hosting, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.